Hello. Today we're going to install a simple graphic on top of this plastic Adirondack chair. The graphic is one by a local artist, and people like to decorate their simple chairs, so we're going to use this giant sticker here and make this Adirondack chair look a little better. So first, what we got to do is obviously you want to clean your Adirondack chair. We're going to put it in the middle surface here, so you want to make sure that's nice and clean. I've already done that just so we don't take up a lot of time. You're going to need a few tools. You're going to need to have your squeegee. You're going to need, I highly recommend anyway, your heat gun. A hair dryer will also work. And then lastly, you're going to need a nice sharp knife, and I also like to use a ruler. So when we're installing this graphic, we want to position it in place on the chair so that when you're looking at it, basically it presents itself the best. So what I'm doing here is I'm gonna just look at it. I'm looking at the lines that we're gonna end up cutting out afterwards, and I want to make sure that the graphic falls in an area where it doesn't affect those lines too much, and that it still presents itself well. I can feel like the eyeball here, I feel is a good area to make sure we maintain a solid surface on, so when we split it, it doesn't get right through the eye. Also, I like the fin not to fall in between the cracks. It might come over on the edge, which is, in my opinion, I don't think it's that good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically look at it, move it up a little bit here, feel around for your areas, your indentations, and then when you decide like that's where you want to put it, I'm going to put some tape on it. So I've made myself a few strips of some really strong tape. I'm going to take that tape and we're basically just going to rough stick it on for now. Don't worry, we can adjust it a little bit. It's not a big deal. So let's make sure we have where we want it. Eyeball again. When you look at the whole thing, try to ignore the white space and try to envision what the chair is going to look like, whether it's centered between them. You got a little bit of space here. We want to make it maybe have a little bit of space here that evens out. Tail, nice, going to fall right in between there. So I'm feeling like this is a good spot to put it. So we put the second piece of tape on the chair. This is what's going to be known as a dry install. There's two different types of installs that you can do. The dry install is a little trickier sometimes, but it takes a lot less time. A wet install is when you use a lot of soapy water, and you spray the surface, and then squeegee on your graphic afterwards. That's a good install to do if you're if you're a beginner and everything. But because this is a fairly small graphic and the chair is just plastic, we're not going to worry too much about it. It doesn't have any lettering or text that has to line up. So what I've done here is I've taken my graphic, I've taped it all on there and made sort of like a hinge, so that when I stick it on, it's just going to fall down into place, and then we're going to stick it. The graphic itself is 3 layers. You got the back layer, you got the top layer, which is a mask. It's just basically transfer tape, and then the graphic is the center layer. This transfer tape, the only purpose of this is like a giant piece of masking tape. It's going to hold all these little tiny fins and everything in place so that when you do the install, you don't have to like peel them back and you don't get any cuts and everything. And then in the corners, of course, you have these staples. All that's doing is just holding down this mask. Your first course of action is to remove the staples. So I just pull those out. Get those out of the way. Once I have that, now my graphic is basically free of, clamp together. So you gently are going to pick this up. You're going to be careful, grab the paper, and make sure you don't pull your hinge off. You're going to lift it up, gently pull the back off, and there goes your bottom piece. And as you can see, these are all the pieces that this top piece is holding together. So now once we have that in place, we're going to get our squeegee. Your squeegee is a felt top squeegee with a hard edge on it. We're going to basically gently come down with it. You want to start from one end and go down. Sometimes you can go from the middle and go up or down, but because we're doing a flat hinge like this, we're going to go from the top down. So we gently start squeegeeing our piece together. Firmly pressing on the graphic as gently as you can, trying to work the pieces into place without them getting any folds or wrinkles. This particular material is extremely sticky. It's made by general formulation, and the material itself is really good for doing snowmobiles, motorcycle fenders, and things like that. It's particularly aggressive, you know, in terms of the adhesive on the back. Whenever you get to an area like this, you see where I have this, I'm going to cut just some of the tape away to make some little tension release. That way I'm not fighting with that area there. You could also cut away some of the old stuff. I mean some of the unused stuff here. Let's just get rid of that. So now you have an even easier area to work with. So we're going to continue on with our little squeegee. And as you see, I'm working from the center and I'm trying to work my way out this way. I'm not going to worry about this too much because some of those things may be needed to be lifted and put back into place a little bit better. So I'm just going to work myself from the center out. And again, don't push in the center areas yet because you want to try to maintain a flat surface as much as possible. Those are the areas that are going to be done afterward. Again, don't worry about this portion because it's a small piece. The main body of the graphic itself is what you want to concentrate on. And as you can see, I just kind of work my way down through here, coming to the bottom. And again, here's another spot that has a lot of tension in it. So I'm going to take my little knife here. I'm not going to cut on the chair. I'm just going to cut the tear or cut or whatever. Relieve some tension here. That way you can pull that out and work your way around again, because this is a good sort of focal point of the chair that a lot of people I think are going to look at. So squeeze that down, staying flat. You see, staying flat. I'm just going to go across. Once again, connect over to this side, and then now we have an area completely pressed down where it's going to maintain, you know, the overall look of the chair without it peeling off once we peel that top layer off, which is going to be next. So right now, again, I'm not concentrating on this area. Those are particularly tricky areas for this type of graphic. This is a more complicated graphic. I chose this for this reason because there's a lot of little parts that can get torn off, or they can get you know, crinkled. So we don't want that to happen. Now another thing is this graphic is basically on the chair now, and our top layer is ready to come off. When I do this, I'm going to pull up from the bottom. These areas are really tricky, so you never pull away because you're going to just peel those areas. This is the really stuck portion, so I'm going to try to work my way up this way. And again, because this is just the top layer holding it together, you don't actually have to worry about when you know, getting it all in one piece. So I'm going to just tear that piece off. As you can see, it's nice and flat. There's no real wrinkles or bubbles or anything, so I'm just going to work my way like this. Again, same thing with this area. Making sure that you watch carefully that none of this starts to peel up on you. We're going to slowly pull this away. And again, this stuff is just like masking tape. It just pulls really easily. So here's the part we have to be really careful on. I'm going really slow here so that these pieces don't get lost. And before I get to the end, I'm going to try to lock them in place just like that. See, what I've done there is I just push them down. You know, you can see like it's still kind of floating in the center, but these pieces, you want to make sure they're really nice and stuck on that plastic. That way you don't have any problems with it moving around on you, curling or pulling off. So now we're going to continue on. Again, I'm going over here. This is an area that may have pulled up if you weren't very careful, but it's stuck on there really good. So we're good to go on that. And now here, I'm going to try to push up and away. So I'm going to still pull from the side that's a lot more stuck down. We're going to gently pull it up here. As you can see, this one's kind of floating. We'll have to see what we can do about that. Try to present it. But again, now that I have this out, before I get to the end, I'm going to try to stick these pieces in here. There we go. And now that chair has a graphic stuck on it. We're going to go through. We're going to make sure that all these things are nice and stuck down. before I do anything. The reason why I had you get the heat gun or a hair dryer, sometimes you have a difficult area and it doesn't want to, lay in or whatever. This is fairly flat. You can use your heat gun and then you can heat the graphic. And what that does is it kind of makes the vinyl a little bit more malleable and everything. It's going to make your install a lot easier just to have that on hand. Luckily for this one, we didn't really need it, so we got lucky on that end. So now I'm just going to go through, and I'm not going to push in any of these areas, but I'm just going to go through and make sure my graphic is really stuck well onto all of the areas that are on the top surface. This chair is a little tricky, especially in this area, because it's not really a cut through. It's more like, the plastic has this sort of bridge in there. So we're gonna just go ahead and make sure it's all stuck. You see that's a little bit tricky there. That's gonna come off. But what we can do with pieces like this, we can pull them up and we can move them over a little bit, use a little artistic license. So overall, that's gonna be good. All right, we're gonna get ready to trim the graphic out now. The graphic, I like to use a ruler. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna find my spot here and I'm gonna use my ruler and then I'm gonna cut the center of it. So here's where your basic mark is here. You don't have to use a ruler. I like to use a ruler, but sometimes people just kind of eyeball it, which is fine. When I put my ruler on that, I'm gonna take my knife, a nice sharp knife. This is called an alpha knife. It's just like a box cutter. I'm gonna make sure I'm in my center of my graphic, and I'm not gonna push too hard because I don't want to damage the graphic. But all I'm gonna do is gently saw here and then slice down so that I cut through the center of the graphic. I'm pushing on the chair itself, making sure it doesn't move. So the last thing you want is your graphic to move around on you, or your chair, and slide and cut yourself or miscut the graphic. So you see how I've done that there? I sliced those through, and now I'm just gonna take my squeegee and I'm just gonna gently push in here. I'm gonna curve around like this, and you see it's nice and pushed in really well. There you go. The same thing up here. I'm going to come from the side. I'm going to try to push it in there, and then I'm going to try to be very careful and not get any of the felt tip in there. You don't want that stuck on the back of your sticky portion. So you're going to push your graphic like that. Now what I'm going to do here is something a little different. Instead of actually curving this piece around, I'm just going to take it, I'm going to cut a little bit off, and then I'm going to stick it over here. That way, it's not a wasted piece. It doesn't go underneath there. It kind of looks like it bridges across, and maybe it's got a little bit extra piece on there. That's what I was talking about, like with some artistic license there. Same thing over here. We're going to end up doing, I think. But for the most part, that's basically what you want to look like. So we're going to continue on. I'm going to do this middle portion. There's only 3 ribs here that we have to concentrate on. Here, here, and here. When I say ribs, it's actually the negative space. So. Alright, we're going to go down the center of it, again, making sure I'm pressing firmly, and do it a section at a time. There's no rush, so you don't actually have to come and slice straight down. Just make sure that you're in the center of your graphic here, and then when you do, just gently cut. This is one portion, right? Now my middle portion here is the part that's going to be on this lip, so I'm still going to come down, cut like normal, and gently you'll feel this, I feel this part here. I don't want to push too hard and cut the chair. So again, this is another one that we may use some a little artistic license at the top. Maybe cut this piece here, and then we'll see what we got afterwards. So I cut that, put my knife down. Again, same thing, I'm going to push our squeegee over. Squeegee everything into place, just come around, stick it there. Gently pushing it in. I can work both sides at one time. I can work one side and come over. And just kind of see how it goes, see how it feels. There we go. And actually, the divot here was deep enough so that I didn't even have to worry about that white. That actually worked out really good for us. All right. So, push that in here. And again, this chair is fairly flexible, and it's a plastic. So, it's got, it's not as rigid as I would like. We do a lot of these on wooden Adirondack chairs from this artist, and she does some fantastic work. The wooden Adirondack chairs have bigger slats and they don't move around so much. But again, I'm still working my graphic here, so I'm going to come over here gently, push that over. One thing I like also about the wooden chairs is this gap is a lot smaller on them, so you don't have to really miss out on a large portion of the graphic. Yeah. Different chairs, different styles, not a big deal. So walk through, rub our finger through, make sure everything looks good. Now again, this part up here, I'm going to do the same thing I did over here, but I'm going to use just a little bit of it. So I'm going to cut it from the bottom going up, I think. Gently cut one piece like that, move it over just a hair, move down, and then that piece will go like this. And this is just a little tiny piece. We'll have it stick out like this. This way when this one curves in, curves over, you get the idea that it's kind of coming over and hopefully gives the impression that it continues. These pieces are all stuck. Now the last is this these tricky pieces in here. They're very subtle or subtle. I don't know. They're very thin. And I don't know what I'm talking about. So we're gonna take our ruler, place it in the center of the graphic again, and make sure you have a nice sharp razor. I'm gonna gently come down and just cut those pieces all the way through on this one because the last piece, and there's not a lot of giant sections to do. Take our squeegee. Come through and push our edges in. There we go. And this one I cut a little bit more to the right side, so there is a little bit in here. What I'm going to do so it looks consistent with here, I'm just going to take my knife and I'm just going to cut that little piece off of there. It's not a huge piece to ignore. to see here. So when I cut that little piece off, and it'll end up presenting a little bit better. That way it looks, consistent with all the other sides. So, all right, we're going to continue on doing our little squeegee. Again, these pieces, very gentle. Try to get them all in one push, nice and smooth. Going straight over. Nice, all right. Same thing up here. Push them over. Come from this side, pushing them over. And there we go. And that's it. Basically, that's the install of a regular old vinyl graphic on top of a plastic Adirondack chair. Trying to make it a little bit better looking than it